Okay, today we're going to start on Daf Nandayan, Amud Aleph. That's 57A. Is that correct? I'm going to start from Hahu Uvda, which is 7 lines from the top. If you thank Hashem, to learn Torah every day. And this chassid of learning Mishav based in Mikdash immediately. So learning for Shlema for my father, for Naftali ben Chabela. Okay. It starts like this. Hahu Uvda was a story that happened in Beiram, place in the city of Beiram. There was a non-Jew that was climbing up a palm tree. I see Lulav was bringing down a lulav. I don't know what they would do with the lulav if they're not Jewish. Maybe they would get it for weaving. Maybe they would make baskets out of it. Or whatever the case is, I don't know. He's bringing a lulav, a stick. Badi the kanachis, as he's coming down the tree, naga bereisha de luliva bechamer shle bekavana. The edge of the stick, the top of the stick, touched wine. Must have been like a barrel down there. And as he's coming down, he touched the wine. Rav said that you can't drink the wine, but you could sell the wine to a non-Jew. It was wine that was touched by a non-Jew, shalei bekavana, without intention. There was no intention of nisach over here. It was just maga. It was really maga al yedei davaracher. It was really like indirect touching without intention. Rav said that you could sell it. You can't drink it. Amalei Rav Kana Ravasi l'Rav. So there's two famous students of Rav Kana and Ravasi. Many times Rav would say things, and Rav Kana and Ravasi would challenge him. Rav Kana and Ravasi, they challenged Rav. Amar Hudamar Tinik Ben Yaima Osi Nesach. So what's happening here is that we have someone that's touching the wine without intention. Well, could be comparable to a child that touches wine. A child that touches wine also doesn't have intention because he doesn't even know about Avodah Zara. So that's also called non-intention, right? It's a different type of non. This one could have had intention, and this one couldn't have had intention. But both of them don't have intention. And Rav said that when the child touches wine, it becomes aser. He makes yayin nesach. It's aser even to sell. And here he's saying that you could sell it. So 1 second, it contradicts with his opinion of shalei b'kavanah. Rav said before that shalei b'kavana tinik ben yaimai, the child is shalei b'kavana. The child is of course shalei b'kavana without intention, and this is also without intention. Over there he says that it's us. So here he says he could sell it. Amar lehu. So Rav responds to Rav Kana Ravasi, Eimer damrina b'shtiya. When I said before that a tinik ben yaimai makes yayin nesach, I was only referring to drinking. Anami amri. Did I say that he can't have benefits from it? That he can't sell it? It's just a prohibition on the drinking of the wine, not on the selling of the wine. It should come out very interesting that Rav says that shalei b'kavana is only aser b'shtiya. Okay. Gufa. Go back to the statement that we just quoted to analyze it more in detail. Amar Rav. Rav says, Tinik ben yoimai eisei yayin nesach. Child that's 1 day old, if he touches wine, the non-Jewish child touches wine, it makes yayin nesach. The wine becomes yayin nesach. We just explained that it's yayin nesach only b'shtiya. Okay. Okay. Esvei Rav Simi Barchia l'Rav. Rav Simi Barchia has a question on Rav. It says like this. He quotes a Tosefta. It says, Halekeach avadim and oivdei kechavim. Someone buys a slave from a non-Jew, regular non-Jew. He's buying him as a slave. Shemalu v'lei tavlu. That this slave that he's buying already was circumcised, but he wasn't put in the mikveh. You know, there's 2 steps to converting, and they would circumcise the slaves, and then they would put them in the mikveh for the sake of conversion. It's not really conversion. It's for for the sake of being a slave, right? So it's like a halfway process. So they're halfway through. Same thing applies. Rashi explains this very interestingly. This is talking about the children of maidservants that, for whatever reason, the mothers were not converted. They were usually when you buy a non-Jewish slave, they have to go through like a semi-conversion process where they go to the mikveh, and then but over here they did not end up going to the mikveh. These maidservants, and so when they have children, the children were not really converted. So they grew up in a Jewish house. The children grew up in a Jewish house, but they're not Jewish. They were circumcised though, but they weren't. They were never put in the mikveh. Women only have one step to conversion, right? Right. Women only have one step, but they didn't do that step. So the children, we have two cases here. One is where they grew up in a non-Jewish house, not Jewish slaves. Another step is where they grew up in a Jewish house, non-Jewish slaves. Two possibilities. Okay, so we say like this: Roikon midrasan b'shuk is tummy. Roikon, their spit, midrasan, and what they sit on or lay on in the marketplace is tummy. Now, the explanation for this is that a non-Jew we had before, the rabbis made a decree that they have an impurity of a zav. The zav has an impurity that is the fluids of a zav are an avatuma, extremely tummy. Can make a person tummy or clothing tummy. And also the things that the zav sits on is also very tummy. So even though non-Jewish men or women biblically have no impurity, it's only a Jewish nothing alive is impure except for a Jew. Only a Jew could be. But the rabbis instituted on a non-Jew that he should also have this impurity in order to keep people away from the children shouldn't hang out with the non-Jewish children. So there's this rabbinic decree. Laws of impurity would hopefully make that the separation. Well, what about this child over here, or this slave? He's halfway converted. He had the Mila already. So one opinion says no, he's still non-Jewish, and we have the decree of the tumah of the zav goes on him. Ba'amila, there's another opinion that says says that he is pure. Now the explanation for this opinion is, what are you talking about? Why should he be pure? He's not Jewish. He has the decree. He says no. The rabbis only made a decree on things that were common. This is a very rare case where you have a non-Jew that's in between his conversion process. He already has the circumcision, but he didn't do the tefillah yet. There was this famous story in Eretz Yisrael about a non-Jew that was converting back in the days of 100-something years ago. I forget who the Rabbanim were. Shmuel Salant, maybe, the old days when the Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld's days, Rav Kook's days, like in the 30s or 20s. What was a non-Jew that was in the conversion process, that he touched some wine. He had his circumcision, but he didn't go to the mikveh yet. It was like very similar to this case. And there was a discussion if someone in that situation can make wine, because he's obviously not touching wine for nesach, right? So question in that case was, did the tumah, the two steps to the process of the conversion. One step is you remove the impurity of being a non-Jew. The second step is you gain the holiness of being a Jew. Circumcision is the removing of it. Going to the mikveh is the gaining of the. So maybe because he's removed this. So anyway, whatever the case is here it wasn't maybe this is also a conversion process. Very similar story. Maybe that the whole machlekes over there was based, that story was based on this Gemara. So one opinion says it's leish shchicha. It's not common. It's not so therefore there's no decree. There's no decree. So there's machlekes here regarding tumah. two opinions on if this person that's in the middle of the process, if there's the tumah of a non-Jew on him. Second halacha here is Yainan. What about their wine? It says like this: if they're adults, then the wine becomes yain nesach. Ketanim, but if they're children, the wine is not yain nesach. I already see why Rav Simi Barchia is quoting this to Rav, because he's telling him that a child doesn't make yain nesach, which contradicts what Rav said that a child does make yain nesach. Okay, anyway, before we get to that, it says ve'elu hen gedolim ve'elu hen ketanim. And which are the gedolim? Does it say over there which are or these are? Does it ask it as a question in the English translation? No, but what does it say? Which are? Or does it say these are? The following are? In which are classified as adults, and which are minors. Okay, see that the word ve'ilu or the ve'elu, not ve'ilu, ve'elu. Word ve'elu in that dictionary with the aleph on it. I forget who it was. Frank Yitzchak Frank has a dictionary. Has a white dictionary with the aleph on it. So over there he says that the word elu could mean these are, and it can also mean which are. And because of that, he says the Mishnah in Eila Metzias is Eila Metzias Shalai Ve'Eila Chayv Lachas. Eila Metzias Shalai. And listen. So he wants to translate it like this: Eila Metzias Shalai. Which are the ones that you keep? Eila Chayv Lachas. And which are the ones that you Eila Metzias Shalai? These are the ones that you keep. Do you follow? So the word can be translated both. So this is very interesting because when it fits over here, it says ve'elu hein gedolim, which are the adults, ve'elu hein ketanim, and which are the minors. So let me tell you, gedolim, the adults are yodim b'teva avedis kol shamsheh. Those are the ones that know how to worship idols and they know all the intricacies of idolatry. Ketanim, children, einam yodim b'teva avedis kol shamsheh. Those are the ones that don't know how to worship idols yet. What's maturity amongst the idolaters? Do they know how to worship idols? Can they daven for the yamad by the idols? That's the adults, and that's the children can't. Well, katani miyas. Nevertheless, we learned that gedolim in ketanim lai, that children do not make yayin nesach. It contradicts Rav. Rav says that children do make yayin nesach if a child touches the wine. Yeah. In those days, they diluted wine, so children would probably be drinking the wine just like adults. So they would have wine, and for children, it was diluted. It was like a punch. They didn't have grape juice. They did have grape juice, but grape juice would ferment. Today, the grape juice doesn't ferment. It just goes bad because they pasteurize it, so it will never ferment. It will go bad, but it won't ferment. So yeah, they have a question on Rav from this Tosefta. So Tirgama, this must be Rav, is explaining. He says, when it says that there's a difference between a child and the adult, that's not talking about the non-Jew. That's talking about the Bnei Shvachis. Talking about the Bnei Shvachis. They grew up in a Jewish house. Let's say it differently. Yeah. So Rav holds that a non-Jewish child, the non-Jewish child makes yayin nesach. That would only be in a non-Jewish child that grew up in a non-Jewish home. But in Bnei Shvachis, they grew up in a Jewish house. It turns out that they're not Jewish, but they're they grew up in a Jewish house, we don't consider them to make yayin nesach. The Gemara says v'abechein kamer, but it says the same thing applies to both. If you look carefully at the Tosefta, it says halikiach avadim, someone buys slaves from a non-Jew, v'chein, and also, which means that the halachas are the same for both. If you say and also, that means that there's a comparison between the two. So it says, oh, that you're worried about that v'chein. You don't have to worry about that v'chein and also, because that's talking about a reikin and majas, and that's talking about the other case. There were two cases, two halachas here. One halacha was that if they touch something in the Rishus Harabim, they touch something there in the marketplace, that it's going to become tamei, or their saliva becomes tamei. They sit on something and becomes tamei, right? That halacha would apply to both of them, both the one that was purchased and one also the bnei shvachis. But when it comes to the wine, that's only bnei shvachis. Where it says 1 second. You had two opinions when it came to the impurity. One opinion said that they give off impurity, and one opinion said that they don't give off impurity. So what we're learning now is like this. If someone purchases a slave from a non-Jew, there's a machlekes if it gives off impurity. If someone has slaves that were born by a maidservant in a Jewish house, there's a machlekes if it gives off impurity. Gemara says 1 second. If I say that the non-Jew that was purchased, the slave was purchased from the non-Jew is tamei, then when you continue on and you say, and so too, if it was born in the Jewish house is also tamei, then you're telling me something of interest, because the coming from the outside is tamei, but maybe someone that was inside, that was born into the Jewish house, is not tamei. Kamash malani is tamei. You're telling me, whoa, it doesn't matter. Even if he was born into the family, he grew up here, it's also tamei. It's a chiddush. But according to the opinion that says that the non-Jew that was purchased is because he was already circumcised, but he didn't, even though he didn't go to the mikvah, but he's still tar. And so too the Jew, the child that was born in the Jewish house is also tar. That's a chiddush. Of course he's tar. Even the non-Jew was tar. Even the one that came from the outside is tar. So ma'yik lameimar. If the v'chein is talking about the yayin nesach, then fine, it's coming to tell me that there's a difference between an adult and a child with the yayin nesach, fine. But if you're just telling me that the v'chein, that the comparison is only about the tumah, and you tell me that he's not tamei, and then you want to add that so too from the Jewish house is not tamei, so there's no chiddush in that. Al-Kamash Malan, the Gemara says, no, there is a chiddush. Chiddush is like this. Avadim dunya de bnei shvachis. What we're doing here is we're doing a comparison between the slave that's being purchased from the outside and the one that's being that was born into the Jewish house. Now we're going back over here where it should really be Ella. Does it say Ella? It should say, it's like going back on. It's not. We're now doing the comparison regarding the wine. We're saying like this. That there's a comparison between these two categories of people. One is purchased from the outside and one is born into the family. Just like when it comes to the child of the maidservant that was born into the Jewish family, right, they were already owned, and there was a circumcision, but there wasn't an immersion. He would make yayin nesach, right? If he's an adult. Malo v'tavlu, but let's say he went to the mikvah already, then he won't make yayin nesach. Afavadim came, the same thing applies to a slave that's being purchased from the outside. Once he goes to the mikvah, he doesn't make yayin nesach anymore. Why is that a chiddush? He went to the mikvah, he converted. No, it is a chiddush. Because we have a statement from Rav Nachman in the name of Shmuel. Even though they've graduated, but they're still not considered a doctor until they go through residency or something. They have to go through 1 year not talking about idolatry until before we allowed their wine.
Doctors and residents, see, look who walks in right now. Good timing.
Kamashmala and Delay comes along the Tosefta to tell me we don't go like Rav Nachman Amar Shmuel.
Analogy to get the MD degree.
Thank you.
Oh, the doctor even during
MD degree is with graduating.
and so
They don't know him. You need the rest.
so here, so my analogy is correct then, because you become a Jew right when you graduate, but you still can't touch wine until for one more year.
Oh, in that case, it's
Yeah.
exactly.
So apologize for missing time.
Then that's not how I apologize.
Machalach, machalach. Kamash Malan Delay. Kamash Malan Delay comes to tell me that we don't go like that. We say that once there's a conversion, it's good. Okay, Gufa. Now we go back to analyze this statement that we said in passing. Rav Nachman Amar Shmuel. Amar Rav Nachman Amar Shmuel, Alikiach Avadim and Evkechavim. Someone purchases a slave from a non-Jew, Afal Pisha Malav Tavlu, even though they already were circumcised and they went to the mikveh. Eisin Yayin Nesach, they still make wine prohibited until the name of the idolater of the idols is forgotten from their mouth. Remember that story when the non-Jew was converting? He goes into the mikveh. Huh? No, he goes into. He says, "Oh, Yashka, this is cold." As his father, they said, "I think you better go back and study." So they have to wait for the name of the idol to go out of their mouth before they. Okay, so how long does that take? I'm not sure. Ben Levi says, it takes 12 months. 12 months, they stop using that in
It's interesting because it's like, I know it's not the reason, but mourning ends by a year also, naturally.
right.
It's reason, and we but it seems that the year people will at that point.
Right, it has something to do with habit or memory or something. Esvei Rabba Rav Nachman. So remember, this is Rav Nachman that's saying the statement in the name of Shmuel that you have to give them 1 year of residency in the Jewish house before we trust them with the wine. So says, 1 second. Rabba asked Rav Nachman the following question. It's interesting because before we were quoting this, we were saying this as, you know what the chiddush of this Tosefta is? That we don't follow Rav Nachman Amar Shmuel that says that you have to wait a year, that it's immediate. Comes along Rabbah and quotes this back to Rav Nachman that says, I have a kasha on you. I learned from this that you don't have to wait a year. You said that you do have to wait a year. So it's being used in like different, in two different ways here. Tamei. The spit or the what they sit on in the marketplaces. Tell me, and some say tar. Yeah, what about the wine of this person or these people? Gedolim, if they're adults, then they make yayin esach. Ktanim, if they're minors, ain't yayin esach. Ve'elohin gedolim ktanim. Which are the adults? Which are the minors? Gedolim she'edim b'tiv avedichem shamsha. The adults are the ones that know how to worship the idols. Ktanim. The minors, they don't know how to worship the idols. Okay. Nevertheless, in this, it was stated, if they were circumcised but they didn't go to the mikveh, then they make yayin esa. But if they were circumcised and went to the mikveh, then they don't make yayin esa. What are you telling me, Rav Nachman, that if you buy a non-Jewish slave, even though he was circumcised and went to the mikveh, he still has an entire year to wait before he doesn't make yayin esa? From this Tosefta, it's very clear that it's immediate after the conversion, after the mikveh, that there's no yayin nesach. So Rav Nachman says, Tirgma b'nei shvachis. That halacha, that it's immediate, right after the conversion, that you don't have to wait, that's because that was the children that were raised in the Jewish family. They don't have to wait. But the other case of the person that was purchased from the non-Jew, you have to wait an entire year till they forget the name of the idol.
Who is the father of those?
The father would have been either another slave or they definitely came from. It's a non-Jew that's being sold.
Don't be nosy.
Slave.
No, I'm saying, was the baby born while the shifta was within the family?
Yeah.
So it's not like he bought a shift and she came with a brand new baby.
No. But even if yes, the way we're putting it here is that the baby was born into the house, already in the house. Why didn't the mother convert? For whatever reason, the mother never converted. She couldn't convert because she was wearing a cast. She had dental work that didn't allow her to go to the mikveh yet. Because it would have been a chatzitza.
Back in those days,
Huh?
Or she converted after he was born. So he was.
Maybe. She didn't want to get her hair, right? Ruin her hairdo. My grandmother liked that joke.
Nana
would say the joke. They said about the joke. It was a woman that was preparing for her conversion. So when she shows up on the day of the conversion, the rabbi said, "Okay, now you have to go to the mikveh." So he said, "No, I just had my hair done. I don't want to go in the water." She said, "Okay, fine. You'll go up to the neck, but you'll always have a goyish cup." That was the joke. Anyway, Yiddish humor. Okay. So Tirgam b'nei shvachis. So what we're going to say like this is we'll say that there's a difference between if it's raised in the Jewish house or raised in a non-Jewish house. Raised in a Jewish house would be immediate. Not raised. That's how Rav Nachman's going to explain his ruling that you have to wait a year. It's talking about raised in a non-Jewish house. I'm sorry. Yeah, because we don't have. He never heard of the names of the idols. You don't have to wait the year. We said we gave two things here. We said that you have to wait till he forgets the name of the idols. Well, how long does that take? We said a year. So do you have to wait the year for someone that? He says no. You don't have to wait the year for someone that wasn't raised in that environment. But the Brisa says, and so too, and it mixes both cases. So which tells me that the halach is the same by both. It says no. I reckon a midrasan. That v'chein, that's so too, that you want to do a comparison between if it was purchased from the outsider, if it was born into the Jewish household, that's talking about only the spit, if it's impure. Says, well, you can do that comparison only if we had a machlekes about that comparison. We had a machlekes about that halacha. Is it tamei or tahar? If it's tamei, then you say, well, just like the non-Jew, in the non-Jew there's tamei, so too, even in the Jewish house is tamei. You have a chiddush to tell me. But if he's tar, when he's not coming from the outside, he's pure. We don't have a decree on him of being tamei like a zav. So if he's in the Ma'ik Lamemar, why do you need a comparison if he's coming from the Jewish house that he's going to be tar? Of course he's going to be tar. It says, no, it's coming to teach me something else. Avadim dumya debnei shvachis. That the slave is similar to the children of the maidservant in the Jewish house. We're going back to the wine. We say, no, there is a comparison regarding wine. The comparison goes like this. That by the slaves, if they're adults, even if they're from even the Bnei Shvachas, if they're adults, they make yayin nesach. But the minors don't make yayin nesach. But the minors, even if they're coming from the outside, they don't make yayin nesach. And the chiddush is lafuke midarav. This goes back and says it's excluding what we learned from Rav before, because Rav says that a child does make yayin esech, which means that touching wine without kavana, according to Rav, is still a problem. And comes along our Bryson and says it's not a problem. Touching wine is not a problem. Kamashmalan Deloy comes to teach me that not. Okay, now, what comes out from this Gemara is that Shmuel was the one, Rav Nachman was saying a statement in the name of Shmuel. And that statement was that if you purchase non-Jews, a slave from a non-Jew, you have to wait an extra 12 months. That was Shmuel's statement. That statement concludes, this Gemara concludes by saying that we do not hold of Rav, that says that maga shloi b'kavana, touching wine without intention, Rav said is tamei, Rav said is yayin nesach. Shmuel would hold that it's not yayin nesach. He says ktanim do not make yayin nesach, right? That's the opposite of Rav. The Tosfos over here in La Fuke Midrab, it's nice big Tosfos. He says, well, you scared of it?
Yeah.
Actually, the big Tosfos in read easier. Yeah, it's big.
Whoa.
It's big, but it reads much easier. That's the funny thing with Tosfos, that the small Tosfos you should be more afraid of than the big ones.
Yeah, the whole world's a narrow bridge.
the writers of Tosfos, when they wrote the long Tosfos, and they elaborated more. The small Tosfos, and they didn't elaborate. They're much more cryptic. Anyway, over here, he starts off discussing that the halacha is going to be like Shmuel. And he has a proof because Rabbi Shua ben Levi, Rabbi Shua ben Levi goes like him. Where was Rabbi Shua ben Levi? Did we quote Rabbi Shua ben Levi already? Yeah. Amar Rabbi Shua ben Levi, ad shnei masar chodesh. We asked, how long do you have to wait? 12 months. Who says that? 12 months. How long do you have to wait to forget the name of the idol? Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Rabbi Shua ben Levi is really earlier than Shmuel. So how does Rabbi Shua ben Levi comment on the statement of Shmuel? Look on the chart. Where's Rabbi Shua ben Levi? In the beginning of Tosfos, it seems that Rabbi Shua ben Levi is commenting on Shmuel. At the end of Tosfos, he says, it can't be that he's commenting on Shmuel. He's earlier than Shmuel.
Oh, they discussed.
Hopefully the answer is going to be time machine.
Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi was his
Many Rishonim note that Rabbi Shua ben Levi did not say this to explain Shmuel's ruling, for he actually preceded Shmuel, quote Tosfos. Rather, Rabbi Shua ben Levi taught a different context that a slave is likely to forsake spending 12 months. Okay, so he wasn't actually commenting on Shmuel. Thank you. He wasn't actually commenting on Shmuel. He was commenting on this general concept, which now we're applying it to Shmuel. What Tosfos?
He was one of the last to know, and Rabbi Shmuel.
Yeah. Yeah. So on the chart.
On the chart.
Is Rabbi Shua ben Levi above Shmuel?
Yeah, because he's in the other chart. He's at the end of the.
So it's interesting because Levi was a Talmud of Rebbe. Rabbi Shua ben Levi would be a son of Levi. Of Levi. Let's say. I mean, it doesn't tell us that, but I don't know that this is the same Levi. That's Rabbi Shua ben Levi. I don't know that. The chart shows it that way. Okay. And that's what always I would like to assume, because it's easier. You don't have to remember more people. It's Rabbi Shua ben Levi. So what Tosfos wants to say is like this: that the halacha is always like Rabbi Shua ben Levi, even against Rabbi Yochanan. And that Rabbi Yochanan is the halacha like Rabbi Yochanan against Rav and Shmuel, which means that the halacha is like Rabbi Shua ben Levi even against Rav and Shmuel, for sure. If the halacha like Rabbi Yochanan wins over Rav and Shmuel, Rabbi Shua ben Levi wins over Rabbi Yochanan. So for sure, Rabbi Shua ben Levi wins over Rav, which means that if Rabbi Shua ben Levi is commenting on Shmuel, the halacha is going to be like Shmuel, not like Rav. So which means that we could be lenient about a non-Jew that touches wine, shalei b'kavana. So then listen to this. Tosfos goes on. Tosfos goes on and he says that
by chart or by heart.
That Reb Shimon, the Rashbam and the Rivan, in the name of Rashi, they quote the Tshuvas Hagainim that nowadays there's no problem for a non-Jew to touch wine because a non-Jew of today doesn't normally pour wine for idolatry, and it's considered like non-Jews that don't know about idolatry. So it's like a tinnik ben yaimai. It's like the child. And that's why we rely on collecting debts from non-Jews that will collect wine from the non-Jew as in a debt.
This is before the Chanas stuff.
No, this is Rashi's quoting this.
You
Yeah, he's
chart.
not saying to drink the wine. I don't know
What do you
why.
chart?
He's not saying to drink not to drink the wine. He's saying that you can have hana from wine from. In other words, you're working according to this part of Taisus. Taisus switches as he gets to the bottom, but according to this part of Taisus, you get a gift in the holiday season. You give everyone a bottle of wine. You happen to work in this place. But what do you do with this wine? It's a fancy wine. So you can have a hana from it. You could sell it. You could give it to as a gift to someone else. No, one second. So here in Taisvis, it would appear that you can use it. Now, the Re sends to Rabbeinu Tam the following message. He says, between you and your father, it means your grandfather, nowadays you can drink non-Jewish wine entirely. Because your grandfather said that his grandfather is Rashi. He says, your grandfather says that the non-Jews nowadays are not considered like that they, because they're like a tinnik ben yaimai. And you hold that what Shmuel, a tinnik ben yaimai, according to Shmuel, you're even allowed to drink it. He took it a step further. You should be even allowed to drink the wine that the non-Jew touches. Rabbeinu Tam says that no, there's a mistake over there. Really, we paskin like Rav that a tinnik ben yaimai, the opposite. We paskin like Rav. Tinnik ben yaimai does make yain esach. Anyway, this is a discussion in this Taisus. I mean, if you go through this carefully, it actually plays out into Shulchan Aruch, where there are some leniencies with non-Jews in wine based on this Taisus.
You've changed the term from Avodah Kachavim to now non-Jews.
Yeah.
Most non-Jews nowadays are not
right.
Avodah Kachavim.
Right, and that is what Rashi is saying, that the non-Jews today are not Avodah Kachavim. But not like Rashi, I would say that maybe Christians are Avodah Kachavim. I don't know, but he's saying that they're not Avodah Kachavim.
Don't look it on ChatGPT.
Where was he? Rashi was in France. It was all the that was the very Christian, very right. It's very Christian place.
Yeah, just around that time with the Crusaders.
A lot of wine.
Right.
Great guys.
A lot of wine.
Great guys there.
Godfrey, and those other people in the Crusades. You remember? Bull.
And Richard Lionheart.
Yeah, Richard Lionheart was in like the second crusade or the third crusade. Rashi was the first crusade. It was Rabbeinu Tam, was stabbed and left for dead by the Crusaders. He was stabbed 5 times. They left him.
But he survived.
He survived, yeah. Okay, we're holding now by a story. Who Avodah? Back in the Gemara, who of the David Mechusa? There was a story in Mechusa. Mechusa is the town that Rava lived in. It was like a wealthy town, and Rava always he criticized the people of Mechusa. Anyway, there was
this place that brought in the ice to make a mikvah. What was the name of that?
I don't remember.
At the end of traveling.
In Mechusa?
I'm trying to remember. It's also a weird name.
Uh-huh.
You know what to amend the Mishnah is. The first paragraph.
Okay, so there was a story in Mechusa, probably not Mechusa, because Mechusa is in Babylonian, Mishnah is mainly in Israel. Asa Ibid Kechavim, there was a non-Jew that walked in to Aya Lechanusi, came into a store, Lechanusi the Yisrael came into a Jewish store. Amar Lahu, that sounds like a joke, right? Amar Lahu, he says to them, the people in the store that are sitting around, do you have wine to sell? No, we don't have any wine. Have Yosef Chamra bedavla. There was a barrel over there that had wine in it.
No, by the
A
way,
bucket.
that was Anshe Midva.
Medva. Okay.
Interruption.
There was a barrel, a bucket with some wine. He sticks his hand in it and he goes like this. He swishes it around to the liquid that's inside. Amalu Hailav Chamru. He says, "This isn't wine." I'm gonna say it's working already. Remember the joke? You know the joke, but this guy comes into the store. He says, "How come the Jews are so smart?" So he says, "Oh, because they eat gefilte fish." So he says, "Okay, I'll take a piece." So he says, "How much is it?" He says, "It's $5 a piece." So he comes in every day for like 2 weeks. He's buying a piece. Then he comes in after 2 weeks. He says, across the street, it cost $1 a piece. You're telling me $5. You see, it's working already. So hey, he says, "This isn't wine." He says, "Shakle," the Jewish owner takes it. Shakle Haich, the Jewish owner takes it. Britche in anger. Shadi Ladani spills it out into a barrel.
Whoa.
Now, what happened was in the barrel, well, there was wine. So he really messed himself up. Is what most people do when they get angry, is they end up ruining more than they had ruined in the first place, right? The guy gets home and punches his wall. He breaks a hole in his wall because he's angry. He got angry. He took the wine. He threw it into his bucket. He now ruined his wine. Well, Shari Rabbah is when he liked Kechavim. Rabbah said, "Don't worry about it. The wine in the barrel, you could still sell it. Sell it to a non-Jew. You can't drink it. You could sell it." If Ligla Rav Huna Bar Chidna, Rav Huna Breder Rav Nachman, Rav Huna Bar Chidna, Rav Huna Breder Rav Nachman, they argued on Rava. They said you cannot sell it. It's totally prohibited. The non-Jew did the worst type of yayin nesach, is to swish it with your hand. Shichshach is to shake it. That's a big problem. Well, Nafak Shipuri de Rava Visharu. The shofar, the announcement went out on those cars in Israel. They come around saying, Rava's teaching is that it's permissible. Nafik Shipuri de Rav Huna Bar Chidna, Rav Huna Bar Nachman Asri. Then those cars went around, those shofars went around in the name of Rav Huna Bar Chidna and Rav Huna Bar Nachman that it's aser.
Sounds like Purim when you had the two declarations at the end. The first one that was ready to kill the Jews, and then the second one, don't kill the Jews. That's what they read.
Two headlines. So Ikla Rav Huna Breder Rav Nachman l'Mechuza. Rav Huna Breder Rav Nachman shows up in Mechuza, and apparently this announcement, they weren't in the same city until they lived in different places. So Rav Huna Breder Rav Nachman comes to Mechuza. Amalei Rava l'Rav El Yakim. Do you see that name? Shamei. Rava says to Rav El Yakim, his shamish, his attendant, he says, "Troik, Gali." It means like quickly close the door. Like Nesa Inchi de Nitrid. I don't want the people to come in and start bothering me. Like lock the door. Well, apparently it wasn't quick enough. And Al Lagabe, Rav Huna Bar Breder Rav Nachman shows up, comes inside. He enters. Al means he enters. Amrlei, he says, Ki agafnamai. He says innocently, he says, "What's the halacha if a non-Jew shakes the wine because he's just checking if it's wine? Not because of yaina, he's just checking, he shakes it." Amalei Yasser Filabana, Ravid denies the whole story. Says it's Asser. Asser Mana. Says, but you were the one that said that it's not Asser. That's why I'm coming here to. It says, I was talking about the barrel. He threw the wine into the barrel. The barrel is mutter bana. So what do you do? Now you have mixed in this wine with that wine and this. So when you sell the barrel, you have to leave out the price of the extra wine that was poured into it. That wine you can't have enough from, but the rest of the barrel that you can have enough from. Now Rashi says over here.
A lot to say about wines.
That Mishum Kisufa Ka'amar Hachi. Really, Rashi says two things. It's two things here. First of all, Rava did actually change his mind. Rava actually changed his mind. Rava said that it's asur. But when he said that it was mutter, he actually said that it was entirely mutter, even the wine in the barrel. But Rava was embarrassed to say that, so he said that I meant that it was only mutter, the wine that was in the barrel, not the wine that was poured in from the bucket. Right from the bucket, he poured it into the barrel. Right, so that's how Rashi puts this here. Does he hold now that he says that it's asur? The bucket wine itself is asur. The barrel is mutter, which is interesting. That it's we would say that it becomes nullified, and not that it becomes nullified. We just say that it doesn't extend. It doesn't extend to the whole. It doesn't make everything asur b'hana. It only makes it. Only the original wine is asur b'hana, and this is mutter b'hana. One second.
It makes sense. It makes sense because the barrel was empty.
But the way Rashi, I'm teaching the way Rashi learns it. I'm sorry?
It makes sense because the barrel was empty because the guy was looking for, there was no wine available. So the barrel was completely empty. So when he spilled it in, he could make sense that he was talking about the barrel.
It turns out that that's not really what happened. Because it turns out that we're saying that the barrel actually had wine. They had wine. They didn't want to sell him wine because they didn't want him to touch the wine. It turned out they had wine. And he got angry. It doesn't say he got angry. He was just proving to them that there's wine. See, what's this? This isn't the wine. So they said, "Don't touch my stuff," and they threw it into the. Okay. Amar Rava. Rava goes back to explain why he changed his mind. Now, this story took place before. Because Amar Rava says, "Kiyasel Pumpadisa." When I came to Pumpadisa, Akvar Nachmeni Shmaitze Masnisin da Aser Shmaitze. Nachmeni, which is Abaya, he surrounded me with questions from Brises and statements that say that it's Aser. So I had to change my mind to say that it's Aser. So, Dahu Uvda, David ben Ardai. First of all, there was a story in Ardai. Vasa Shmuel. Shmuel said that it's prohibited. So a non-Jew shook the wine, and Shmuel said that it's Aser. Bitveria, there was a story in Tveria, and Rabbi Yechon said that it's Aser. V'amrilei, so Rava says to Abaya, that's a kasha. Levishain b'nei Torah, they were being, you can't bring me a proof from a story. That case, those people in those towns were not b'nei Torah, and the rabbis, they wanted to be strict on them. They shouldn't make mistakes. So they were being strict on them, but that's not really the halacha. V'amrali, Abaya said back, Tveria v'nardai and b'nei Torah, the mechuzah b'nei Torah. Tveria and Nardai. This is like B'nai Brak and Lakewood. They're not B'nai Torah, but Mechuzah B'nai Torah. But Salem, Massachusetts is B'nai Torah. That's what this is your comparison, right?
Someone who's not B'nai Torah.
So he's saying that if you agree that the issue was being being B'nai Torah, then you for sure agree that it should be Aser in Mechuzah. That's where his story was, in Mechuzah, where Rava lived. Masnisa, what was the brisa that he quoted him? The Agardamim Ovid Kechavim. Agardamim are inspectors. They're city inspectors. They come around and they check like weights and measures and quality of different produce and things. They come around and they taste the wine. Agadam Ovid comes to Kadach the Meinekes Vehela. Meinekes means to nurse, but here it means like a straw. He made a hole. Kadach is to pierce. He made a hole in the barrel, b'meinekes, with a straw, and he takes a sip out of it. It's like a way of tasting the wine. Well, he takes up some wine. Or he tastes from a cup, and he pours the rest of it back into the barrel. This was a story that the non-Jew came to taste the wine to see its quality of wine. That's true, and they said that the wine is aser.
This is very similar to what we started the lulav.
Oh, yeah.
Except it was an accident. But there was how you day, it was secondary touch.
Yeah, they the baracha.
So
Then
the
they
straw,
pour the wine in the cup.
shiny, because it's not from the plant, the cast,
Right.
but from the straw.
Chai.
Right, so why don't they say flow kitzitz coming from the guy to the casket?
Oh, back by that other case. Over there, it wasn't considered wine yet. As it's coming down the.
But this is wine.
This is wine.
So now the wine's going into the guy's mouth, and it's still connected.
Oh, you're saying nitzuk?
Yeah.
Should say nitzuk. Yeah, maybe that's a good point. So my love, they said that it's usher in this case. My love, what do they mean that it's usher? Bahana, probably meant usher bahana. Rava, what are you saying? Rava, you said that it was mutter. The guy shook it. Over here, he takes it in a cup. It says light. It's usher b'shtia. It's only usher to drink, but you can have a na. He says, 1 second. Yachi, if that's the case, listen, let him teach. Yimacher. Let him say that you can sell it. You can sell it. Kediktani seifa. Now, we're asking on the term over here. There's two possible terms. You could say that it's usher, or you could say you could sell it. Usher would mean that you can't drink it. No, usher would mean that you can't. Not only can't you drink it, but you also can't have benefit from it. Sell it means that it's usher b'shtia, but it's mutabana. So it says we have other cases where it says that yimacher, which is the halacha of that you can't drink it, but you can still sell it. It says chayrim avit kechavim. I'm not sure exactly what the case is. Apparently, there's this guy that does things without thinking, and shahishit yad lechavis. He sticks his hand into a barrel. Ksavish shemen, ksavish shemen. He thinks that it's oil, but nimtza shel yain. Really, it was wine. Zahayamai said this was a story that happened. He put his hand in Vamru, and they said yimacher that you could sell it. See, we use the term you could sell it when we want to say that. You didn't say that here. You were saying that it's mutter bahana, and the term that they used over there was that it was aser, which means that it's aser bahana. So tiyufta de Rava tiyufta is a strong question on Rava. That's why Rava changed his mind, and Rava said that what he said before, that it was mutter, is really aser. It's aser bahana.
When we use this answer to whoever to you, why do we use that as opposed to take?
Teku is when we have a question that we leave it unresolved, and we just leave it as is, but we're accepting that that's the halacha. We have a kasha, or maybe if we don't know the answer, we don't know what to do, we just say teku. We don't have the answer to this. Tiyufta means that we're going to change our minds. We're rejecting everything that we said. Tiyufta de Rava tiyufta. Is this a strong question on Rava? Yes, it's a strong question on Rava. We're not going to paskin like Rava now. Now we do have an answer, and it's not like that. That's the. Rabbi Yochanan ben Arza. You know Ben Arza? That was the Svarim store in Israel, in Yerushalayim. Ben Arza.
Yeah, Ben Arza.
He was Rabbi Eliyahu Kitov's son-in-law. It was Ben Arza. Remember, you know the Svarim store? It's a very big.
His daughter was my old-time teacher.
Oh yeah. What's her
Don't
name?
blame her.
At Arza.
His name was Chanoch, I think. When you would get books, the library books all had like a sticker in it. Chanoch ben Arza. He would supply the libraries. Anyway, so this is Rabbi Yochanan ben Arza, Rabbi Yossi ben Neirai, have Yasi v'Koshas v'Chamra. Okay, these two sages are sitting and they're drinking wine. Asu Gavra, a fellow comes by. Amrulay says to them, Ta ashkinan. Amrulay, they said to him, come and serve us. Labasa drami lakasa. After you put it into their cup, that person wasn't Jewish yet. maybe yet, maybe wasn't Jewish at all. I don't know why they thought he was Jewish, but they thought he was Jewish, and meanwhile he wasn't Jewish. One of them said, "Oh, you can't even have benefit from this wine, the non-Jew that we thought he touched it." The other one said, "It's not even a problem at all. We can still continue drinking."
Wait, so if you own the restaurant at that time, the inn, all right, and this guy sits down and he orders this bottle of, like bottle of wine, he orders a bottle of wine, all right, and he looked Hasidish, but he was Amish. But in those days,
Right.
that type person was Avodah Zara. And you didn't know. I'm just trying to understand the thing. And then he lifted up to drink. All right. And then he says, like instead of L'chaim, he says Lemorculus. So you realize, he's a
That's also about now.
worshiper. Yeah. All right. So you didn't know it before, you know it now. So then you can point to one opinion, you can't give him the bill because you can't have hana by selling it to him.
No, when you sold it to him,
But he didn't. No, they usually don't pay.
don't pay till they drink it.
Pay till the end.
But he acquired.
No, but when you sell it to him, you sell a guy a car, and he gives the car to the church.
Yeah.
He says, "I'm not going to pay you because you can't take money from the church."
Then you didn't sell the car because you ain't going to give him the car without the money.
Right. So here, when the person orders something, whatever you order, what he does afterwards that's his business. Yeah, he still owe the money.
So according to one Rav, you give the money back because you can't.
No. When you buy something in a store or in a restaurant, once you order it, it's yours.
Off the hook. Yeah.
You're obligated to
You're obligated to pay. Yeah.
But in this case, the one who was prohibited, the owner from getting hana, is not allowed to ask him to pay. I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah, in the case where the person messed up the wine, he would not be able to sell it now. In that case, he won't be able to sell it.
But he just sold it to the guy.
No, was it? Oh,
The rest of the, I'm trying to figure out which wine we're talking about.
they had a bottle of wine.
A bottle of wine.
They had a bottle of wine. Someone comes by and says, "I'll serve you."
Okay.
He starts serving. They realize it's not Jewish. They said, "Okay, what are we going to do with this wine?" One says we can drink it. One says not only can't you drink it, but you can't even give it to the guy or to any other non-Jew. You can't do anything with it. You can't make anyone happy with this wine. They had no benefit. You can't get any favors out of this wine. You know the guy that went to the doctor? They gave him a bill. He said, "What's this for?" He says, "Well, I gave you advice." He said, "I'm not taking the advice." Okay. So so we have machlekes. Amar Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Manda asa shaper asa, manda shari shaper shari. He says you're both right. The one that says it's aser, he has a logic to that. The one that says it's mutter is logic. Manda asa, the one that said that it's aser. Meimar Amar, because we're going to assume like this, that the non-Jew surely understood. Salka daiti, would it enter his mind that they would surely say that the Rabbanan Kihani Shechra Kashasu, do you think these rabbis are drinking beer? Rabbis don't drink beer. Beer is
Commoner.
That's a common drink. The rabbis are drinking wine. They don't know. They didn't know about today's beer.
What's that?
Right. Okay. So he knew that he was pouring wine, and when he poured the wine, he was pouring it with the intention for idolatry. Yeah, they only had Budweiser back then. That's a Corona. Okay. Mandashari Shapashari, the one that. That's my beer. Mandashari, the one that said that it's permissible. Shapashari, it's good that he said it's permissible because me Maramir said like this. Do you think the rabbis would be drinking wine and tell me to come and serve it? Obviously, they're drinking beer. And he didn't have intention to as a libation or to pour it for an idol. So Vakachazi says, 1 second, you're making up these reasons because he doesn't know what it is. He saw them drinking. He says, no, it's Balelia, it was at night. He couldn't see what liquid there was in it. But the wine you could smell. This is Bechadet, I know, it was new wine, it doesn't have a smell. But he touched it. If a non-Jew touches the wine, then it's aser. Now here we're saying that maga ovid kechavim is aser in shichshach, shaking it. We have a possibility that it's not aser. So now we have different levels here of with this wine. I have actual touching of the wine, and I have shaking the wine. Shaking the wine, you need to know that it's wine. Touching the wine, you don't need to know that it's the wine. One second. Gemara says, he took it with the ladle. We say no, he didn't take it with the ladle. We're thinking if he took it with the ladle, he says no, he only poured it. So the ladle would have been considered maga. So Taisus asked the question that I was thinking. I thought of the question that Taisus was asking. Baruch Shekivanti, that Rabbi Shua ben Levi held that maga was not a problem. It was Rav that said that. And Shmuel said that maga shlei b'kavana tinik ben yaim wasn't a problem. So here Rabbi Shua ben Levi is saying this.
I was not thinking about
I know that.
Right.
That wine.
Okay, I'm not sure. I have to go through that Tosfos. Okay, so it says no. He wasn't touching it. He was pouring it. Apparently, touching it with the ladle is considered touching it. Pouring it is different. I guess if you're pouring it, you hold the whole bottle. Babale koichai, that's just considered his strength. And koichai shlei bekavana, kol koichai shlei bekavana legoser beirabanan. The rabbis didn't make a decree on koichai shlei bekavana. So a non-Jew pours wine. He knows that he's pouring wine. That would be a problem. If he doesn't know that it's wine when he's pouring it, that wouldn't be a problem. What comes out from this?
What's this kochosh lo kavona? Doesn't count.
Yeah.
So if someone's washing for netilas yadayim, they're not paying any attention. They just by route going with their hands back toward this, and then they make a bracha. Sounds like a bracha of a They had koach kavra bili kavana. That's what they just said. No, he understands.
No, we're talking about a non-Jew touching wine. So if he actually touches the wine, that's a problem. Let's say he just poured the wine. So poured the wine would take intention that it's wine. If he doesn't realize that it's wine, then it's not considered.
But why don't we apply that to us?
Because the logic that we're using is, did he have intention that it's for an idol? That's the basis of this. And so if he didn't know that it was even wine, so then there's no problem. Because they would only use wine for that type of pouring. Okay, now the Gemara says, Ravasi asked Rabbi Yechanan. We had before Rav Kan and Ravasi. I'm not sure if it's the same Ravasi. Yeah, that was Rav Kan and Ravasi that were asking Rav. Same generation. Maybe Ravasi traveled to Eretz Yisrael and then he went to Rabbi Yechanan. Anyway, Ravasi asked Rabbi Yechanan the following question: wine that's mixed by a non-Jew. They used to mix wine with water because the wine was either too strong to drink back then, or it was the fermentation would make a person sick, and so they would mix water in. So, what's the halacha if the non-Jew mixed the water in? Amalei ve'ima mazgu. Why don't you use the term mazgu, that he mixed it in? Why are you using that archaic word, maschu? Amalei, I found it in the Bible. It says, Tivcha tavcha, mischa yena. She prepares her meat and mixes her wine. Amalei. So Rabbi Yochanan says, Lashon Torah latz, Lashon Chama latz mei. You're using the biblical Hebrew, but we don't talk in biblical Hebrew. We talk in Mishnaic Hebrew. When we learn in Mishnaic Hebrew, it would say mazgu. Different types of Hebrew, different dialects. So anyway, he ignores that whole thing. He says, well, what's the halacha anyway? Forget the language, the grammar class. What's the halacha? Amalei, aser, mishum, lech amrina nazir, schar lekamra. Lech amrina nazir, schar lekamra lesikra. We tell the nazir, that's not allowed to drink the wine. We say, don't go into the vineyard. Walk around the vineyard. We tell him, don't even get close to it. Okay. So in other words, what we're saying over here is that it's a decree. So, why do they make a decree? The expression? Walk around it. Go away from it. Yeah, I think to go away from it was when you had it right here, and then we have like two things. We have someone that has great products here. We say go away from it. Don't even come close. And then we in another situation we would tell them to walk around the vineyard, not to walk through the vineyard. So.
Go away twice, and it says go around twice.
Right. In instructions, sometimes it's repeated. So Rashi points out, even if though he didn't touch the wine, but there is a decree. The rabbis made a decree on koichai, and if he uses his power, it comes through him that it's usher to drink, but it's not usher b'hana. Because we said before that when the lulav touched we said that was mutar b'hana. Rab said it's mutar b'hana. So the issue over here is only that it's usher to drink. Well, okay. Rabbi Yirmiyah ikla l'savta. Rabbi Yirmiyah came to this place, Savta. He saw that a non-Jew, an idolater, pours wine, and a Jew drinks from it. He said, you can't do that. We say that don't even get close to it. Itmar Nami, we have another statement. Either Rabbi Yochanan said this, or Rabasi said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Yayin shemaz goyv kechavim aser. A non-Jew that mixes wine, it's aser. It's a special decree. Don't get close to it. We said aser. We said that it's aser b'shtia. Rish Lakish ikla leBatzra. Rish Lakish comes to a place called Basra. Now, Basra where's Basra? It's in Iraq? Iran? I can't hear you, Josh.
Iraq.
Basra's in Iraq. So, Chaza Yisrael the Ka'achli Peri, the Leima Asri Vasalo. He sees that some Jewish people, they're eating fruits, and they weren't taking Meiser. He said, you can't do that. He said that's prohibited. Now, he thought that in the Parsha, in the borders of Israel, it says Ves Betzer Bamidbar. The word there was a city called Betzer, which that was the border of Israel. The border of Israel, that means that you would have to take Meiser. Where does it say? Basra is in Israel. Okay, so 1 second, take a look at this.
No, it's not.
Yeah, but hold on a second. Israel started wasn't it promised yesterday's Pasha from the river to the sea? It's Euphrates River, middle of Iraq. So it can be in Iraq, but the knowledge was Israeli.
Chaim Druk says it's Iraq, it's Iraq.
So Chazimaya, it's his water. The Sagdi Lu'avid Kecham V'Shas Yisrael. It's his water that a non-Jew idolater bowed down to it, and Jewish people were drinking from it. Vasalu, he says that's usher. So the Kamid Rabbi Yochanan comes back to Rabbi Yochanan. Amalei, Rabbi Yochanan tells him, Adimikorcha Alecha, while your coat is still on, Zil Hadar, you should go back and correct your mistake. Betzer, Lav Hainu Batzra. There's two cities, one is Betzer and one is Batzra. When you thought that Betzer is Israel, that's Betzer. But Batzra is not Israel. And so therefore they don't have to take Maisa there. And also, Mayim Shel Rabbim Mein Nasarim, public water, someone bows down to a public water, that's not a problem, it's not Asr. Now the Gemara says, Rabbi Yochanan Tameh. This is following Rabbi Yochanan's own logic. Rabbi Yochanan Shimon ben Yitzadok. Rabbi Yochanan says, name of Shimon ben Yitzadok, Mayim Shel Rabbim Mein Nasarim. Water from the public doesn't become Asr. Gemara says, Hadi Yachid Nasarim. If it would have been from an individual owned the water, then it would become Asr. Second, the Teipa Kleida Mechubarim Nenu. But the water is attached to the ground, and we know that things that are attached to the ground, this doesn't become Asr. Remember we said Elihayim Alaharim and not Haharim, the mountains. It says Leitricha the Talshinu Gala. Talking about that there was a wave and it was detached from the ground. Now in that wave that's detached from the ground, there would be a difference between if it's a public or private, right? Because we have to make a distinction between public and private. Where would you have that distinction? Only if it's not attached to the ground. The Gemara says, safe, avnei harshin idaldalu ninu. This would be a wave that's detached from the ground. This would be the boulders of the mountain that are removed from the mountain, which we had before a machlekes between Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Chia. Was it Rabbi Chia? What was it back then? Memvav. And we didn't know who held what. Memvav Amanallah. Bnei Reb Chia, Reb Chia's sons. One said that it's Asr, one said that it's Mutter. And Tistayim the Bnei Reb Chia said that it's Mutter. We tried to prove that. Now the Gemara says, okay, guess what? This is amazing. This is 15 pages later. The Gemara gets back to that. And it says, Tistayim the Rabbi Yochanan Damar Asuris. It must be Rabbi Yochanan said that it's Asr. Before we said that it was, let us prove that Bnei Reb Chia said that it's Mutter. We were proving from Chizkiel, who's one of Reb Chia's sons. So now let's prove that Rabbi Yochanan says that it's Asr, because if it would have been a private person over here, it would be Asr. The whole reason why it was Mutter was because it was public. The whole reason why, but if it would be the water was removed and it was privately owned, it would be Asr. It says like Tricha de Tafchina Biyadei. No, over here we're talking about why would it be Asr? Because the way that he got it, the water removed, was when he used his hand to push the water. Over there, it was a boulder that was cracked off from the mountain, so it wasn't attached to him, but there was no human intervention. Over here, there's human intervention. So that's why we're going to say that it's going to be Asr. Okay, let's leave it over here.
Oh, just getting going.
Well, at least
1 page.
2 hours.
1.5 pages.
No, it's more than that. No, we're not on the page. We're very behind.
60 today.
So it's 59.
Okay.
I used